Oh, looks like I was on mute. So I welcome you all to this particular
Excuse me, sir.
session.
I think your mic is muted.
My mic is muted. Oh. Should be good now. Okay. I welcome you to this particular session, guys, where I'm going to talk about various Azure roles which one can take in bringing up, in upskilling yourself or making a career in. What is the right direction you should probably adopt? With all the experience which I have accumulated over a period of now almost 27 years, I've seen how the technology has changed, and the change has been rapid, very fast in last one decade. Extraordinary changes have happened in the industry. What we would not even have imagined of have happened, and probably going forward also things are going to be, at least for few more years, very fast things are going to evolve. So being stagnant at one place is definitely going to give you a feel that you are out of the market, you are outdated, you are obsolete, and a sense of insecurity can come. So the future is all about cloud computing. But the problem with cloud computing is one can take different directions. You are on a road which can have multiple forwards. You can, from here you are on a crossroad where you don't see just one way ahead. You see 7 ways, 10 ways. Now which one to choose? So this particular session is going to be all about giving you a start, giving you a kick start, I would say, from where you can decide what could be the next step for you and what direction you should take going forward. That is where I am going to support you in this particular session. Yes, more than I talking on my own content, which I am definitely going to start with, my request is you people put your questions on the chat. As many questions as you want, you can put it on the chat. I'm going to pick up one question at a time from there and probably give my perspective for that particular point which we can discuss. I would not even say that I'm too much extraordinary that I would be able to give you the ideal solution to the problem, but yes, whatever is the best in my capability, I'm going to provide you with the solution. And by any chance, if you want to continue your journey with Deccansoft, doing the courses provided by us, you can connect with the backend team and they will be more than glad to provide you the information about how you can proceed further with our guidance. But this particular session is not going to be commercially driven. It's purely unbiased input I would want to give from my side. Literally unbiased. But before I start here, can I know few things like how many of you probably have attended some session of mine in the past? At least one session of mine if you have attended in the past, and what was the title of that particular session, which and what kind of benefit you got out of that particular session. This is just a small quick survey I would like to make. What was the last session you have attended with me, and what was your takeaway from that particular session? How did you benefit out of that particular session? I just wanted to understand what is the benefit I am able to make in the life of various people. What is the kind of contribution I am making in people's life? For that reason, I am asking this particular question. If you have not attended the session with me any time before, you can just mention it as this is my first time. So yes, how many of you have attended a session with me in the past, and what was your takeaway from that particular session? What did you benefit out of that particular session? I'll wait for the people to put the information in the chat. From the time I speak to the time the content gets delivered to you, there will be at least 20 seconds of gap. I'm doing a YouTube live session in which 20 seconds of gap will be there. So if I ask a question, for me to even expect the first reply, there has to be 20 seconds delay. So I just talk little more when I'm asking questions so that you keep involved. But yes, if this is your first session, just mention this is my first session. If you have attended in the past, what was the first session you have attended? What were your takeaways from that particular session? For your information, this session is live on YouTube, and also we have few people, very few though, connected on Microsoft Teams also. So I'm listening microservices implementation in .NET, and I have a very good knowledge of microservices architecture. Fantastic. I think that's a long due repeat session I should make. What are microservices? Very soon you can expect something from me in that particular direction. Very soon I'll take one session on what are microservices. I'll do a repeat session. That was one session which I remember has really benefited a lot of people. Guys, I want some interaction. That's the reason I'm taking this particular initiative. And if at all you have answered this question, you can go ahead and post your query about Microsoft Azure. What exactly you want me to take this particular session to. You can drive with your questions. So please post your questions on what do you want to hear about Microsoft Azure from my side. No, I'm not going to talk subject today. As I said, it's going to be a Q&A session. It is a Q&A on the career in Microsoft Azure. I've passed AZ 900 with your YouTube course. Fantastic, very good. Congratulations on that, Srinivas. Ram, wow, Ram, you have been there for a long time now, more than 15 years I think you have been connected with me. Ram Atukuri, I think you were part of my multiple live sessions too, if I'm not wrong. Take some of those learnings and implement at my workplace, AZ400. Wow. I would like to see trainings on various contents like AI, cognitive search, and so on. Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, you can suggest what can be your expectation in future from me, because I'm going to get ample amount of time in coming few months where I would like to introduce some new courses. So you can give me a direction. Sandeep, if you can do this, it would be nice. It can help probably the audience to gain knowledge in that particular subject. Yeah, you can guide me in that too. Authentication, authorization in microservices, fantastic. Azure Active Directory, cognitive services. So all good. Okay, so when we say cloud computing, see, the word cloud computing has become now part of our day-to-day life. If you are by any ways attached to IT industry, you might be a administrator. When I say, there are different types of administrators. You can be a network administrator, you can be a database administrator, you can be a Windows administrator, Linux administrator, you can be a storage administrator, you can be a security administrator. I mean, there are different types of administrator. One of the administrator roles, backup administrator, disaster recovery administrator. So you can be administrator, or you can be a team which is only responsible for monitoring the entire system and probably taking some proactive action much before the system breaks. There can be a sudden surge in the traffic on your website, and you may not have allocated enough amount of resources to the website. You don't want to waste lot of resources by underutilizing them and paying extra. So monitoring can be one of the roles which probably people might take. You might be a developer in the sense you can be a Java programmer, C# programmer, Python programmer, Ruby language programmer, or Node.js, JavaScript, or it can be even Go language by Google. So you might be programmer in one of these programming languages. Then you might be a person who is involved in making applications using low code tools. No code, low code. You want quick solutions to be delivered to your organization without too much of development. Yes, you can be that kind of role. You might be a database administrator. You might be a person who is informed in transforming data from one form to the other form, so that through that form we can process it easily and generate a lot of reports and do some kind of analysis. You can be a data scientist, which can be involved in applying machine learning and getting some predictive results to your problems in the future. You can be a person who is involved in deploying applications into different types of environment, creating QA environment, creating testing environment for UAT. You can be a production environment, or it can be a development environment. You can be any of these roles, I would say. If you have got in IT industry, you have to now align that role to cloud computing. You might choose one of the platforms like Microsoft Azure. You might choose otherwise AWS. You might choose GCP. That is your choice. But if you do not align your role to a cloud computing service provider, cloud computing platform, and do what you are doing today in on-premise, in cloud, very soon you will feel you are outdated. You will get the dirty feeling of insecurity. You don't know, you have been left behind and the industry has already moved ahead. Huge amount of confidence loss you might see in yourself. So much before it gets late, it is the responsibility of a person for himself that he takes a proactive action, initiative, and start looking at various cloud computing roles. And there are so many roles, as you can see on my screen. Actually, you can be an administrator. When we say Azure administrator, see, all these are Azure administrator, Azure AI engineer, Azure application app maker, Power Platform app maker, business unit. All these are different roles which one can take. I would like to concentrate in this particular session on something like, I would like to focus on maybe the administrator role, which is more common, or it can be a developer role, or it can be a DevOps engineer role, or it can be a security specialist, and of course it can be an architect role, infrastructure architect, so these are the different roles which are primarily very hot. Yes, there are other roles like data engineers, AI specialist, data scientist, data analyst. All these are different other roles we can also discuss about in case we want to. Now, if you are looking at Azure administrator, what could be your responsibility? In Azure administrator, your responsibility is going to be creating a virtual network, probably one or more. Whatever network setup you have in your organization, very similar to that, or maybe with some extended features, you are supposed to create virtual network, one or more, in Azure infrastructure. And between these virtual networks, you should be able to set up a connection. Also, you may want to set up the connection with your on-premise data center and the Azure data center. The connection has to be established. So entire virtual network setup and its connectivity is supposed to be the job of Azure administrator. Azure administrator is responsible for creation of virtual machines and also responsible for implementation of things like network security group, or let it be firewall for protection of the inbound and outbound traffic. Nobody should be simply allowed to enter into a network. So we may want to create a network which is highly secure. Administrator is responsible for doing that. Administrator is responsible for provisioning of storage for the organization, where all the data of the organization, which is in the form of different files, is supposed to be stored. And then we should be, as an administrator, also set up a life cycle for the data. How long do we want to preserve the data? Because if you keep preserving data for years, it is going to cost more and more. So somewhere you will have to do balancing between the preservation of data and also the life cycle, also the cost which is associated with managing the data. So as an administrator, you are responsible for configuring those kind of setups also. As an administrator, you may also be involved in creating certain databases, setting up permissions to those databases, giving access to the people on the network and those kind of stuff. As an administrator, you are responsible for managing the subscription properly. In Azure, we have to start with creating an Azure subscription and then giving access to various users to that particular subscription. As an administrator, you are supposed to manage users in Active Directory, create roles for them, and manage something called as role-based access control. So these are primary important. Of course, you are also responsible for monitoring. Entire monitoring of the Azure infrastructure is taken care by Azure administrator. Azure administrator is also responsible for something like creating infrastructure through code, which can be using ARM templates or it can be using Terraforms. So that's what is the primary role of Azure administrator. So basically, if you were administrator in the past, you were probably working in one area and going deep into it. You only created virtual network and that's it. You didn't do anything beyond that. Gone are those days. You have to be master of many nowadays. You can't be just a specialist of one. Or in simple language, if I explain to you, you should know and you should be jack of many, master of one at least. But my view today is you have to be multifaceted, you have to be master of multiple things, then only you can survive in this world of competition today. Definitely you should specialize in one, but that does not mean others are not your forte, because everywhere it is now a collaborative decision which is taken. You as an administrator will not just do the administration job, you have to also collaborate with the other team members, understand their problems, provide solution and operate on that basis. So Azure as a platform gives you an opportunity to work with multiple roles in the administrator itself. Developers always use language. I told you one of the programming language which is popular can be adopted. That's your choice. When we do development, we mostly focus on the language and the language API. And to program enterprise level applications, we need to probably make things too much from ground up, which can make it very complicated. For example, I want to implement security in my application. In the past, we used to create tables for the management of users, their roles, their permissions, All these things now we want to delegate. We want to delegate to Azure Active Directory. So as a developer, you would have to use the Azure Active Directory and be able to implement security in your system, and that makes you highly productive because that entire system is already ready, and that gives us API which we can use for integration and make our life easy. So what probably would take weeks and months for implementation, robust system is already in place and we can simply integrate our application with that. It can be Redis caching service, or it can be a search service, or it can be a communication service for asynchronous communication. Huge amount of infrastructure is provided now as PaaS services for the developer. Especially if you are planning to build microservices based architecture, which is very common nowadays. Instead of building a monolithic application as one single process with one single programming language, hosting it as a one single website, and then facing so many problems with that, we now divide the job into multiple microservices, small microservices we build and deploy our applications. Rather we build independently, we version independently, we deploy independently, we upgrade and maintain independently. Those are nothing but microservices. Microservices architecture is very common in today's application development. Even startups are adopting this particular architecture because tomorrow if the startup is a success, they can easily scale. Scaling a monolithic application is going to be very complicated when compared to scaling of microservices architecture if the load is going to be drastically increasing on application. So planning for future, almost every application today, whether need is immediate or not, people have started using microservices architecture. Microservices architecture is a distributed architecture which uses an entire network of cluster. So that's where the things get complicated. But a platform like cloud, Azure cloud or AWS cloud or GCP cloud comes with a lot of built-in services on top of which if the application is built, the focus can be primarily on business than doing the plumbing job. A developer can make use of an orchestration tool like Kubernetes implemented in the form of AKS in Azure. Azure Kubernetes service can make use of container instances for deploying the applications quickly through containerization, or even for that matter use something like Azure Container Registry ACR, hosting of different Docker images into it and using it in various other places. Developer is responsible for doing all these things. So today, if you have been programming in .NET, you are programming Java, you are programming Python, you are programming Ruby, and if you are not building applications which are enterprise scale, I would say you are already outdated. You have already started taking slow poison for your career. Very soon you will kill yourself if you are not adapting to the cloud computing services, which are the future way of expanding things. So yes, I very strongly suggest that every developer should move into cloud computing. Second part and second guidance to the developer. Developers have been always primarily focusing on programming language and API. I see even myself, actually out of experience I am talking, out of my 27 years of career, at least 18 years I only invested on developer. That's it. I know C# extraordinary, working with ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET MVC, extraordinary development capability, but never understood how the entire IT or ecosystem is connected to each other. We hide ourselves from major part which makes our application live. There is huge difference between an environment where we do development and the environment where we deploy our application. And developers who are doing specially development on their local desktop never get an opportunity to see the live or production environment, and that makes a big gap between the development and deployment. You are extraordinary in this, but you don't know the infrastructure, you don't understand the infrastructure, you don't even understand what is the role of firewall. Forget about everything else, because that's not your responsibility. You don't understand how the data is actually stored in huge volumes in the production. When I'm talking about terabytes of data, you have written some basic code which will dump the file and your job is over. No, managing the terabytes of data is a huge problem. So how is that done? We don't understand as a developer. So with cloud, I got this opportunity to explore various other departments which probably I could not see in my office or organization on a day-to-day basis. Cloud gave me that exposure to let me help create virtual network, understand how virtual machines are deployed into it, how networking is happening, how communication protocols. That is the reason when I teach especially a developer course, I don't separate developer topics and administration topics. I give them as one unit only, and it has been offering for years where I've seen huge amount of success. Huge. The way the developers evolved themselves has drastically changed, and that's what is the big advantage which you can see as a developer. And when you are having some experience on development platform, when you have experience on administrator platform, you can actually become a DevOps engineer. First and most important correction which a lot of people have to make: DevOps engineer doesn't need to be a developer. You can come from infrastructure background, non-development background, and become a DevOps expert, or you can come from a developer background and become a DevOps expert. DevOps is a job of responsibility, and they are the one who will bridge the gap between the development and the infrastructure when the application has to move from dev to QA to UAT to probably the production, from environment to environment. Today we can't wait for weeks. We want product lifecycle to be released in maybe 2 hours. I want to be very fast. So that's where the DevOps engineering role is going to play a major role. Possibility is there, you are a developer and you are not going to ever perform a DevOps engineer role, but still you should have knowledge of how the applications go into the production. You might be an infrastructure specialist, you may not be doing the role of DevOps engineer. Having knowledge is going to be great utility. So most of the people in the industry today are required in these 3 roles. Major demand is in these 3 roles: administrator, developer, and DevOps engineer. Definitely with the advent of cloud, things get into public domain. A fear comes into the picture that my data can be stolen, my applications can be hacked. That's where different security aspects will be covered by the security specialist. The cloud security implementation, how we can improve the security score of our organization to ensure that it is the most secured system in place, giving limited access to various people. Even if you are giving access, maybe you want to give it for a very limited period of time, so that in that duration they should perform and the permission should get wiped off. So these kind of security related to networking, security related to virtual machines, security related to your data, let it be SQL database, let it be storage database, storage, high volume storage, blob storage, or security be related to something like vault based security, or giving permissions to various users on the subscription. Any aspect of security is supposed to be a concern of security specialist. And of course, the supreme role of all this is an architect. He is actually a decision maker. He will never make his hands dirty. He is not the one who is supposed to do things. He is the one who is supposed to, based on his experience, know how the entire system already works and now align that system to the cloud-based solution. Among multiple services, choosing the right service and making a contribution to the entire solution where the cost has to be taken care of, where the reliability of a solution has to be taken care of, future maintenance and current monitoring has to be taken care of. All these aspects are what are the part of cloud solution architect role. So in addition to that, you see here there is a role for app maker. This is nothing but Power Platform app maker role. There is a data engineer. They are the ones who are responsible for handling big data solutions, machine learning algorithm implementation, making meaning out of the data so that decisions can be taken on that basis. Data scientist, analyzing data through things like building models and using those models for presentation of data on the screen. Analyst will do. DevOps engineer, functional consultant, which is again a kind of Power Platform role. This is a Power Platform role. This is a Power Platform role where you can work with either Dynamics 365 or the Microsoft Power Platform. So these are other different roles which you can take actually. Now, for each of them, there are certification exams. So Microsoft has divided the certification exams in 3 categories. They call it as fundamentals, they call it as intermediate, associate, and they call it as specialist. These are the 3 certification categories which Microsoft has actually created. I found this place. You see, the fundamentals certifications are AZ900. Now, everyone, whatever your role may be, I would say your starting point to understand the entire ecosystem. You may not be able to perform the role, but to understand what are the different facilities which the cloud provides, they are supposed to do this as your fundamentals. Now for this, I have prepared a content which is public on internet. You can simply go to this URL.
Most working professionals
And-
are finding jobs the wrong.
It's around 8 hours of session. You can watch this entire session of 8 hours, wherein you can get pretty decently good knowledge about the cloud concepts, Azure services, cloud solution and management tools, security and networking stuff. Lot of this information is already present here. So my suggestion to lot of those people who are absolutely zero in cloud computing is go to this particular link. I'm sharing it on the chat. Go to this particular link, and in this link you can take this video. Yeah, I talk pretty slow, and if you feel you are getting bored, maybe you want to run it at 1.25 or 1.5 speed, sometimes maybe at 2 speed. AZ900 is not going to get you into job. Very clear. You will not be getting a job because you have done AZ900 course. But your confidence of whether what to do is going to be very high when you do this particular training. Even if you are a raw fresher, a college graduate who has just completed the final year, you can actually go through this entire training. My humble request is to motivate yourself. Please go through these comments first. That's what I do. There are a huge number of comments. That itself is a proof that they are not fake. There are so many likes on this particular session. Yes, even in this particular session, I would appreciate if you can put your comment to let the people know how good or bad this particular session was. What was your gain? What was your experience out of it? That is the way people come to our website and come to our videos and watch them more. So any contribution for you from your side will probably help somebody else also. So yes, do read these comments and do a jump start today itself. 8 hours. 8 hours of videos you can watch. Not even 8 hours, 7 hours. 7 hours of content. You can watch 2 movies. Skip those 2 movies and put a step forward in your career. I don't think it's going to be a wrong deal. Your time is needed. It's absolutely free course, but it will give you a very good startup. If you're planning to write AZ900 certification for your confidence, just to build your confidence, if you want to write AZ900 certification, please do connect with our Backend team for buying the vouchers. AZ900 certification vouchers are available separately and at a very low price we can give it to you at this moment. Maybe less than 2000 rupees we should be able to give you the certification. You can see there is one more series which I have done, which is probably more latest, 3 months ago. You may want to do this. This is more latest. Multiple times I have done this particular training. So you may want to do this course and get the benefit out of it. The starting, you can say this is start. Extraordinary startup this is going to be. Once you have completed this, then, or not necessary you should complete it before also. Maybe today, tomorrow, 1 week later, 10 days. Career can be started in a role-based course which is AZ104. See, everything needs a roadmap. You can't drive in a jungle. We all know when we drive in a jungle, we reach nowhere. Correct? If at all we drive in a jungle, we reach nowhere. If at all we want to drive in a jungle, we need a guide who is experienced about that particular jungle, where to go and how to come back. But if you are driving on a highway, the driving is always going to be smooth and you will reach the destination easily. These certifications are guiding you to ride on a highway, taking you to the appropriate destination. Not that because you are certified, they will give you a job. No. Just because you are certified, you will have confidence that I know this particular content. That's the beauty of this entire thing. Because you are certified, you will have huge confidence and you will know you will be able to reach the destination quite easily. So that's one advantage I want you to take by writing this particular certification. Yes, at the end of this particular session, I'll give you certain links which are absolutely free and you can use them for guiding your learning path, Microsoft Learning Path. I'll give you the links, you can probably bookmark them and start using it. Likewise, if you want to make a role, yes, Azure Administrator Associate or Developer Associate or a Security Engineer Associate, these are associate roles. These are 2-star roles. This is 1-star, this is 2-star, and then you have got AZ305 and AZ400 which are 5-star, 3-star roles. These are specialist. These are expert level, these are expert level roles. And then you may want to go to specialist, SAP if you have been working with, desktop if you have been working with, IoT if you have been working with, they are specialist roles which are created. But this is quite old, the list has grown drastically in the past and there are a lot of courses which you can now take. My suggestion is go to a link where you can read more about these certifications. You can filter Azure and what kind of role you would like to take. These are all different roles which one can acquire. So many are there. Once you filter here, you get a list of Microsoft Learning Paths. These are all Microsoft Learning Paths you may want to use for your learning. Azure Administrator Intermediate, Defender Intermediate, somewhere advanced also you'll see, advanced. So these are all 2 stars, you see. This advanced, when you see 3 star it becomes. This has definitely got more value in the industry when compared to the 2 star. Most of the time every 3 star certificate will have one dependency on a 2 star certificate. For example, if you want to go for AZ305, AZ305, Azure Solution Architect Expert, you will have to be an administrator associate, and then you should do one more exam, AZ305, to become a Microsoft certified Azure Solution Architect Expert. Likewise, say you want to go for AZ400, that is also having a prerequisite. You can either do Azure Administrator Associate or Azure Developer Associate. This is AZ104, this is 204, and then you should do AZ400. Then you will get this certified DevOps engineering expert. So these are few things about various role-based certifications. I see a lot of questions already on chat. Let me take one by one. How to implement authentication and authorization in microservices using Azure Active Directory. That itself is a course. You have to use MSAL, Microsoft Authentication Library. MSAL we call it. That MSAL library is what you will use for integrating Azure Active Directory into our application. I would probably be able to answer only this much at this point of time. So you have to be a developer role, can be a .NET or Java developer, Python developer, and learn about the MSAL library, and that is the solution to your problem. Any prerequisite needed for Microsoft DevOps course? Actually, you should be either developer or administrator. Then it becomes favorable for you to do an DevOps expert role, as I already showed you just now. One of these two you should be good at, and then get into this particular role. So I learned DevOps through your YouTube channel. After that I started working on it. Suddenly stuck at a point error. I am not able to resolve it nor understand. First, the content on YouTube which is present is hardly 2 to 3% of what we deliver. Definitely we cannot put all our content on YouTube, otherwise we will not be able to survive. So of the 100% content, if you are able to do 2% on YouTube, and if you are able to do the project, it does not mean you know the content properly. To be honest, it's a marketing material which we have put on the YouTube, which will probably inspire you to join our complete training and become an expert. And then solving different type of problems will be easy for you. You know few characters of alphabets. Instead of A to Z, you know A, B, C, D, and you think you will be able to speak English? Definitely not. Even if one character in that entire 26 alphabets you don't know how you are going to read, just imagine one character. Take any paragraph and think that you don't understand one character. The entire subject is going to collapse. So when you are learning, it is very important that you learn systematic with the guidance of a mentor, so that you know you are going in the right direction. I'm not saying you join my course, but definitely take somebody maybe in your office, somebody senior who is working with you, align to them and take guidance from them. What topic to learn next, what topic to learn next, what topic. The learning curve is most important. Then you will not have problems in finding solutions to the problem. Your foundation should be very, very, very strong. I want to groom myself knowledge on DevOps engineer. Yes, that's definitely the best thing to do. Sandeep, is YAML programming covered in AZ400? Rather, in Azure DevOps, there are two ways of building pipelines. One is using Classic, which is definitely outdated as the name implies, Classic. And the other is working with more modern YAML files. It is very important that you understand entire industry is now moving towards YAML document, yet another markup language. And that is what people use in workplace. So you should and must be good at that YAML files creation. Though at the initial stage, classic way of creating pipeline is easy. But YAML is the future, and that's what you have to really focus upon. My entire course works on YAML. I will make you expert in how to create YAML. I do a mix. I do mix of both classic and YAML, because during learning sometimes you feel that classic is easy, but I tell you if it is classic how to convert to YAML so that your life becomes easy when you're working on job. That's important. I heard many of your YouTube lectures. After watching and listening, I started learning cloud computing and now doing consultancy as data analyst. Thank you very much for your support. Fantastic, Zahid. Very good. Consultant as a data analyst in cloud. I think these are different roles which one would want to take. Which course? Consultant as a data analyst in cloud trainings. Trainings, I didn't understand. So I would suggest go to this link if you are looking at data analyst role, and every certification exam gives you lot of roadmaps, and you see here Azure Enterprise Data Analyst Associate, which is DP 500, and when you click on this, primarily it can be more of Power BI. It is Power BI. Your focus should be on Power BI. DP 500, so will be DP 300. DP 300. Power BI Data Analyst Associate, Enterprise Data Analyst Associate. So these two can be your focus if you want to become a data analyst. DP 300, DP 500, and both are related to Power BI. Maybe this is advanced when compared to this. And when you take any certification, also good thing to do is, let's say if I filter it to Azure and let's say I go for maybe administrator role, you will see here there is a study guide. You can go to this study guide, and that study guide is going to give you detailed syllabus. These are the objectives at the high level, and for each objective there are detailed syllabus. These are detailed topics, and they have done for each and every certification. Now study guides are built up. You see here on the left hand side, all these are different study guides which you are supposed to focus upon. So now that you have decided this is my goal, you should pick up the study guide and start reading topic by topic. And at the end of the study guide, they will also provide you links to the respective documentation. You may want to read all these things. Ignore change logs and stuff, but yeah, the study resources are there at the bottom, which can be definitely useful to you. Can you put some light on AI and machine learning? I want to upgrade myself in the direction in the coming weeks. I mean, there is nothing special. You become an AI, artificial intelligence developer. You will be able to use cognitive services in your application development. And machine learning definitely needs knowledge of Python and lot of algorithms which are ready-made is what you are going to build if you are taking the direction of data scientist. Azure data scientist and AI, they are two different roles. You have to go and look at it more in detail. So maybe AI 102, if you are looking at AI specialist, this is what you should look at. Cognitive services. It can be image, it can be natural language processing, or it can be conversational video processing. All these things are part of AI. Unfortunately, I have still not got into that AI and ML stuff. I kept myself away from it intentionally. Yes, should be getting into it sometime whenever I get an opportunity. Then we are currently working as senior system engineer VMware and Windows past 13 years. Would like to switch to cloud. AZ900 passed already. Which course? AZ104, AZ305. Minimum these two should be your roadmap, Krishna. AZ104 should be the starting point where you do a lot of hands-on, and AZ305 is more of decision making, designing. So if you want to see how people do architecting, just go to Google and type Azure architect diagrams and look at images. So architects are responsible for creating this visualization of their infrastructure, this stuff. After doing an architect role, all these things you should understand. All this you should understand. How they are working, how this is working, how this is working. Everything should be very clear to you people. So that's what is the best role as a system engineer or VMware, Windows, Linux administrator should actually take. I'm ready to join, but you have no assist to resolve it. I don't understand what is that. I'm working as reporting developer. Is DevOps suitable for upskilling? I don't know what is reporting developer. Maybe you are creating reports using something like Crystal reports and stuff. If that's what you are saying, then yes, you should actually definitely find some good amount of upskilling opportunities after doing DevOps. But it may not be related to just reporting. DevOps is about ability to deploy the applications into various environments. So provisioning the environments using things like Terraform or using ARM templates for Azure, and then into that environment which is created, you should deploy your application. That's what is DevOps all about. This weekend I'm taking a session on Azure DevOps, and I'm going to talk more about that particular role in detail for an hour or so. So I would suggest you can get into that particular session. Do we need to learn 10 plus tools for Azure DevOps like Jenkins, Kubernetes? You should be capable enough to learn. You don't have to learn and get into job. But yes, Azure DevOps is one such thing which is a single platform for multiple stuff. So if you learn Azure DevOps, it has replaced Jenkins. So you don't have to learn Jenkins if you are learning Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is a substitute to Jenkins. And so many other tools which were 10 plus, which you are saying, right, are now part of Azure DevOps. You don't have to learn GitHub. It's part of Azure DevOps, Azure repos. But tomorrow, if needed, you should be able to move to GitHub also, from Azure repos to Azure GitHub. So Azure DevOps is like a supermarket, one place for everything. That advantage you get by learning Azure DevOps. But yes, along with Azure DevOps, there is a very good market for Kubernetes and Terraform. These two things definitely I would suggest a top up in addition to Azure DevOps and get into the job. It's huge value, huge value. There are some ways to control cloud cost. Can we utilize a serverless service like Azure Functions to manage cost on a usage? This is not something which can be answered in a session like this. But definitely the idea behind Microsoft and others also providing serverless compute is to reduce administration, where I don't have to take care of the scaling and also pay when there are no load. But not everything can be done with Azure Function. You'll have to do a mix and match. You'll have to do certain things with Azure Function which are feasible and possible with that. You may use Logic App, you may use Event Grid, you might use SQL database, you might use in very special cases virtual machines also. So it's entire package you should know. Just by talking about Azure Function in isolation is not going to work. None of the Azure services work in isolation. They all work together. They all need to be handled properly, integrated with each other. What are some of the ways to control over? Please tell the path for data engineer. Learn SQL Server. If you want to learn data engineer, learn SQL Server, DP900 topics, and then get into DP203. That's the path for data engineer. SQL Server, DP900, DP203. And you can start applying for job. Optional though, not necessary. You may also learn Power BI. It gives you value addition. But that's not data engineering. That's data analyst. So data engineering, data analyst will definitely get you a good prospect of getting into the industry. Among ARM template, Terraform, Bicep, which one is enough to learn? No. They're same purpose. First thing, ARM template and Bicep are same. There is no difference. When you compile Bicep, you get ARM template. The compiled version of Bicep is ARM template. So that is cloud native solution, Azure specific, both. Terraform is cloud neutral solution for creating infrastructure as code. Launched in the year 2014. Really it has become very popular today, especially with those organizations which want to create infrastructure in Azure and AWS and GCP simultaneously. There are a lot of organizations which believe in multi-platform, multi-cloud platforms. They don't want to get married to only one. So they are using all the three. And probably over a period of time they'll decide which one to stay with, or they would simply replicate the entire list of services in all the places. That's all is going to happen. So that's the benefit of multi-cloud platform. So if the organizations are multi-cloud, the solution through Terraform is easy and more popular. I have 16 years of experience in .NET, WinForms, WPF, now working as architect in Windows application. You're already squeezed yourself. 15 years Windows based application you have done literally. It's a curse to the career. You didn't move on to web based application. Today the entire world is on web. WinForms, nobody wants to build. Windows application, nobody wants to build and get confined to a particular desktop, which again can get outdated tomorrow when new version of the operating system comes in. So first thing, Subodh, you should do is upskill yourself to maybe web programming. Do something like .NET Core, because you are a .NET programmer. Learn .NET Core, more specifically ASP.NET Core, and be able to build, because you have 16 years of experience, you should be able to build ASP.NET Core applications, that too which are microservices based architecture. There is a beautiful course created by Deccansoft, by me only. So you should look at it, and that should be the very good point. Yes, parallelly, may not be not necessary one after the other. Parallelly, you should adapt developer and Azure architect role. Azure architect, microservices architect should be your destination. Instead of focusing on Azure solution architect, which is more of infrastructure, you should be able to give solutions for developers, not just for infrastructure team. So that should be your approach. Your view on TOGAF, honestly, no, not much knowledge on TOGAF, so will not be able to guide you. I'm more of a Microsoft guy than focusing on others. I don't see questions on. Thank you very much for scheduling this session. I have 8 years of experience in .NET technology, mostly backend. When I wanted to come into cloud technology, I came across your sessions and choose to become a DevOps engineer step by step in next 6 to 8 months. I joined a gold membership in Deckensoft. I planned my path AZ104, 204 and finally 400. If my path is absolutely discorrect, Harika, that's how you should progress. And don't stop at 400. I would suggest, because you have done AZ104, 204, you can do 305 and 400, any one of these two parallel. Absolutely, that's a perfect path you have taken. And be assured, now that you are aligned with Deckensoft, we can give you the best content for achieving your goals. So these are the only questions I see about solution architect as well. I don't see any more questions.
This is Vijay.
Vijay.
I kept a question. So actually, I'm having like 6 years of .NET C# experience and overall 20 years of experience.
Overall,
So
how much?
20 years.
20 years. Wow.
Yeah. But all like C, shell scripting, all those things I initially worked for scripting, and from last 6-7 years I'm on C#. So recently we are moving to application from on-prem to cloud as a lift and shift, and that's where I get into all those things. I know I already am outdated, but I don't want to become too far. So I started, I joined as a gold membership. So there are like two options I was thinking, like whether I need to become a Azure developer and a DevOps engineer, or is there anything that like a big data or a data scientist related to any
No,
of the
no,
clouds?
don't change your line. Don't go into data. Now that
Okay.
you are already having 7, if you move to data, you will waste your again 7 years. Out of 20 years, you are able to claim experience of 7 years.
Yeah.
That itself is not good. Now, if you change the track to data, this 7 years also will wipe off.
Got it. Okay.
So don't focus on data engineering, and that can be top up, but main focus should be ability to build microservices application and Azure architecting using the services available. That should be your main area. I'm not saying 305. I'm not at all saying focus on AZ305 alone, because AZ305 focuses not just on developer solution but also on infrastructure, and rather infrastructure is more in that.
Yes. Okay.
Anytime feel free to connect with me for one-on-one discussion also. If
Okay.
you are getting
Thank you.
confused too much, you don't have to wait for this. Now that you are already connected with me through gold membership or any other course, feel free to simply connect with me and we can discuss. Just ping me on WhatsApp and I'll let you know what is the good time and we can connect. But your
Thank
focus
you
should
so
be
much.
very clear. 104, 204, 204 more focus, maybe 305 and 400. Like same thing what Harika is doing.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. I'm a SharePoint developer having 10 years experience. Now I want to move to cloud. Developer, what's for me? Developer, DevOps or data scientist or AI. Power Platform. All those who are SharePoint developer move to Power Platform. PL series. PL100, PL200, PL400, PL400 if you can do, which requires a bit of C# programming. PL400. I think that's going to be a huge thing in demand in the industry. That's my suggestion for people who are with SharePoint. But if you don't want to get into low code modules, then yes, maybe infrastructure and DevOps engineer. But that will be like little shift from what you are doing in the past. You may not be able to become developer because that would require hardcore programming. In SharePoint, you have probably done only React. I don't think beyond React you might have programmed it. So if you have done C# programming in the past, yes, developer 204 and DevOps will be a very good roadmap. But if you have done only React, I would not suggest you now getting into Azure developer. And if you have lot of 10 years, I think 10 years is very good experience to be able to talk about Azure services as an architect also. But DevOps is a good role. For that, start with 104 and DevOps. That's it. I have around 5 years of gap. Wow, after my graduation. If I learn cloud technology services now, is there any chance to get a job in MNC? If you don't learn, guarantee you will not get a job. That assurance I'll give you. After learning, you will get or not is secondary. Got it? But if you do not learn, you're not even giving an opportunity to yourself. Somewhere you have to break that jinx. I have a gap. Now you have to break it. And you have to keep trying to open the door. You cannot even put your hand forward and say, I'm not able to open the door and the door is going to open automatically. That will never happen. That will never happen. You cannot be in a meditative state asking door, hello, please open, please open. You have to give a try. Yeah, you can start with, I don't know what was the 5 years of experience which you had. Before 5 years, what was the kind of experience you had, Naveen? Based on that experience, you should actually adapt to the future. What was your past experience? Try to align certain things to it. DevOps engineering is something which is very, very generic and huge amount of demand is there. But problem is everybody wants to learn DevOps, but they don't learn systematic, or they learn partial and leave it. And they think this is enough to get into a job. No, it's definitely a role which needs huge amount of dedication and it comes with lot of responsibility. That is the reason you are given 3-star certificate. But problem is what? Everybody thinks we can learn DevOps and get into the job. You have to put effort, you have to burn yourself. There is scope, no doubt about it. It's not going to be easy to get a job. You have to struggle. Keep your energy in the direction continuously for long duration. So I think we come to an end of this particular session. I appreciate you giving thumbs up, liking this particular session if you can, and sharing with your friends a link to this session in case they want to make a career, starting career in cloud computing. With this, I sign off for today. See you soon in one of the future sessions. Stay connected. You can subscribe to the channel to get alerts. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir.